Welcome back to XRP Insider, your trusted source for the latest XRP news, updates, and market insights. Today we're diving into a developing story that's catching serious attention across the crypto space, and it revolves around XRP movement on two of the world's biggest exchanges, Binance and Upbit. Now, if you've been watching the market closely, you already know that exchange activity often gives us early signals about trader sentiment, and right now, those signals are leaning in a direction that might surprise a lot of XRP holders. We're talking about increasing supply on major exchanges, which usually hints at selling pressure, but as always in crypto, the full story is a little more complex, and that's exactly what we're going to break down for you today in a clear and easy way. So let's start with the latest numbers, because they really set the tone for what's happening. Over just the past 24 hours, XRP investors have deposited more tokens into exchanges, and that's something you don't want to ignore. Specifically, users on Upbit deposited around 53,658 XRP tokens, which at the time of reporting was valued at roughly $74,000. At the same time, Binance users deposited an even larger amount, around 491,183 XRP, worth close to $682,000. Now, these numbers might not sound massive at first glance, but what matters here is the direction of the movement, not just the size. When more tokens are being sent to exchanges, it usually means traders are preparing to sell rather than hold. And this is where things start to get even more interesting, because this isn't just a one-day trend. If we zoom out a bit, the data shows a much bigger pattern forming over time. Since February 2025, Upbit's XRP holdings have increased significantly, with a surge of over 509 million tokens added to its reserves. That's a massive jump, bringing its total holdings to more than 6.49 billion XRP. To put that into perspective, Upbit now controls over 40% of all XRP held on cryptocurrency exchanges. That's not just a large number, that's dominance, and it means what happens on Upbit can heavily influence the overall XRP market direction. Now let's talk about Binance, because the story there is just as important, if not even more impactful, given Binance's global influence. Since February 24, 2025, Binance has seen its XRP reserves grow by over 1.76 billion tokens. At current prices, that's valued at around $2.44 billion, which is a staggering figure. As of now, Binance holds approximately 2.54 billion XRP, making up nearly 16% of the total supply held on exchanges. When you combine Binance and Upbit together, you're looking at a massive portion of XRP liquidity concentrated in just two platforms, and that concentration plays a huge role in shaping short-term price movements. Now, here's the key takeaway that every XRP investor needs to understand. When supply on exchanges increases, it usually indicates that traders are more willing to sell than to hold. That shift in behavior often creates downward pressure on price, especially when it happens across multiple major exchanges at the same time. And right now, that's exactly what we're seeing. With both Binance and Upbit reporting rising XRP reserves, the market is starting to reflect a more cautious, even slightly bearish sentiment among traders. But before you jump to conclusions, it's important to look at what analysts and AI models are saying about this situation. According to the Finbold AI Agent, which uses advanced financial models to predict market trends, XRP might enter a period of consolidation in the near term. In simple terms, that means the price could move sideways rather than making any strong upward or downward moves. The AI prediction suggests that XRP could trade around $1.39 by May 11th, which indicates limited momentum in the short run. At the same time, technical analysts are also sharing their perspectives, and one of the voices getting attention right now is Egrag Crypto. Based on his analysis, XRP is still stuck in what he describes as a multi-month correction phase. That means the market hasn't fully recovered from previous downward pressure, and there could still be more movement before a strong bullish trend begins. In fact, according to this analysis, XRP could potentially drop as low as $0.95 before it finds strong support and starts its next major rally. Now, I know hearing about a possible drop can sound concerning, especially if you're holding XRP for the long term, but this is where understanding market cycles becomes really important. Corrections are a natural part of any asset's journey, especially in crypto, where volatility is high. What matters is not just the short-term price movement, but the bigger picture, and many long-term investors still believe that XRP has strong potential for future growth once this phase passes. And here's something that could completely change the narrative in the blink of an eye. The current bearish sentiment is largely driven by increasing supply on exchanges, but if that trend reverses, the entire outlook could shift. If Binance and Upbit users start accumulating XRP instead of depositing it, meaning they move tokens off exchanges into private wallets, that would signal stronger confidence and reduce available supply for selling. And as we've seen many times before in crypto, reduced supply combined with steady demand can quickly lead to price increases. So right now, the market is sitting at a very interesting point. On one hand, rising exchange reserves are signaling caution, and on the other hand, there's still underlying belief in XRP's long-term potential. This kind of mixed sentiment often leads to consolidation phases, where the price moves within a range while traders wait for a clear direction. And during these phases, smart investors tend to watch key indicators closely rather than making emotional decisions. Another important factor to keep in mind is the role of large players, often referred to as whales. When large holders move significant amounts of XRP onto exchanges, it can amplify market reactions because their actions carry more weight. While the current data doesn't confirm large-scale dumping, the steady increase in exchange supply suggests that at least some level of distribution is happening, and that's something worth monitoring closely in the coming days. At the same time, we can't ignore the broader crypto market environment. XRP doesn't move in isolation, and overall market sentiment, including Bitcoin's performance and macroeconomic factors, can influence its price. If the broader market turns bullish, it could help offset some of the selling pressure we're seeing right now. But if the market remains uncertain, XRP could continue to trade within a narrow range or even test lower levels before finding stability. For traders, this kind of environment often presents both risks and opportunities. Short-term traders might look for quick moves within the consolidation range, while long-term investors might see potential dips as buying opportunities. But as always, it's important to approach the market with a clear strategy and not rely solely on emotions or hype. So to sum it all up in a simple way, what we're seeing right now is an increase in XRP supply on major exchanges like Binance and Upbit, which is creating a cautious or slightly bearish outlook in the short term. AI predictions suggest consolidation, while technical analysis points to the possibility of further downside before a potential recovery. However, the situation is far from fixed, and any shift in trader behavior, especially accumulation instead of selling, could quickly change the direction. That's why this moment is so important for XRP watchers. The next few days and weeks could provide clearer signals about where the market is heading, and staying informed will be key. Whether you're trading or holding, understanding these underlying trends can help you make smarter decisions and avoid getting caught off guard by sudden market moves. That's all for today's update on XRP Insider. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to stay tuned for more real-time insights, because in the world of crypto, things can change fast, and we'll be here to keep you ahead of the curve.